friends, and welcome back to my channel where we mainly discuss thrillers on Thursdays, and today I'm incredibly excited because I'm going to be reviewing Us by Jordan Peele. This is probably the most highly anticipated horror movie of 2019. I know it's one of the, I would say, top 3 movies I was looking forward to this year. I know I'm a little late to the game on this review, but since I always film my year of horror book clubs as the last video of the month, sometimes my other videos get pushed off. First half of this video, I'm going to be having no spoilers. It's just going to be a spoiler-free review, and for the second half, I'm going to get into a spoiler discussion. I'll have timestamps down below if you want to know when to click off if you haven't seen the movie, and I do recommend probably not checking out the comment section, because if you have watched this movie, you'll know that the second you finish it, you want to read theories and discuss it with other people. So getting into a spoiler-free summary, Adelaide and her husband and her 2 children are going to her family's summer home to hang out, chill, sit at the beach, and they're all very excited to relax. But Adelaide is a little nervous because right at the beginning of the film, her husband really wants to go to the beach, but Adelaide, when she was little, had a traumatic experience there, so there's a little bit of tension there. And after they come back from the beach, a family breaks into their home that looks exactly like them and terrorizes them, and then the movie really evolves from there. So first, getting into pros, my favorite aspect of the movie was actually the score, and you can hear some of it, of course, in this trailer, but I immediately, when I got home, downloaded the soundtrack on Spotify. It really helped build up a lot of the tension, and it was catchy but also very creepy. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm at work and I'm sitting in my cube at my desk job, I really like to listen to movie soundtracks, especially horror movie soundtracks. Not because, you know, I love horror movies, but more so just because they kind of keep me on the edge of my seat literally and make me focus, because they kind of heighten my energy. If you don't do that, I highly recommend it. Especially the score during, I won't say who this scene is between, but I'll just say the final fight scene. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. I just loved how the movements were timed with the song in the background. It was just fantastic. I also adored the acting, and I saw someone tweet and they were like, I had no idea that Lupita invented acting, and I agree. It's just when she plays both roles, the voice that she puts on, the movements, the way she moves her eyes, the way she moves her body, it's just terrifying and so well done. I love Winston Duke, and I thought he was hilarious. I thought it was great that he added a little bit of lightheartedness to the movie, and I also thought that, especially with his character, the comedy was timed and really well done and didn't take you out of the movie. The daughter's name, I believe, was Zora, and I thought she was fantastic. Now, I feel bad saying this, and I'm not going to move into cons yet, but I will just say sometimes the son took me out of the movie, because when he's playing, you know, just the regular kid, the family's being terrorized, you know, the whole family would be like crying and freaking out, and he would just be kind of like sitting on the couch, and I don't know, sometimes it took me a little bit out of the movie, but when he's playing the other role, I thought he did a really good job. The other aspect I really enjoyed was how layered this movie is, and that it really benefits from a second viewing, similar to Get Out. I saw somebody saying that in 2009, when we watched horror movies, we would go home and, you know, turn on our lights and lock our doors, and in 2019, when we watch horror movies, we go home and read forums online about different theories. And when you think about Us, Get Out, when you think about movies like Hereditary, I think that's really true. I spent probably an hour after I got home reading different Easter eggs and theories online. I've heard Jordan Peele say, and hopefully I'm summarizing this correctly, probably not, but that Get Out and Us and then the third movie he's gonna make aren't necessarily trilogies. I forget the term that he used, but they're all on the same theme of social commentary, which is very true when you're watching the movie. It really says a lot about the state of our world, how we view people who are different than us, and class. And I've even heard him say that there are twice the amount of Easter eggs in Us as there are in Get Out. So I don't personally really like rereading books or rewatching movies that much, but I have seen Get Out multiple times, and I'm sure a year or two down the road I'll watch Us again. Now I'm gonna get into cons, and one aspect I have with the ending, which of course I'm gonna wait and get into until we talk about spoilers, but the one thing, I'm looking at my notes, the one aspect I will say for cons, and I hate putting this even in cons because this is so subjective is just that I didn't find the movie very scary. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not Us is a horror movie. I think of course it's a horror movie. Look at all the different elements and the basic storyline. Jordan Peele has said this is a horror movie, and I agree with all of that. I'm not saying it's not, but I will just say, aside from the first act of the movie when they're being terrorized in the house, I did not personally, and again, this is all just about how you intrinsically feel watching movies, I didn't find it personally that scary. The feeling I had watching it was how I'd feel more if I'm watching like an edge of my seat thriller than, you know, a deeply horrifying movie. Like, say for example, I found Hereditary very scary and I was scared to go home alone at night. Whereas with Us, and I can't pinpoint why, again, I'm not saying it's a thriller, it is a horror movie, but there's just something about the way that it's directed and the way that the last 2/3 of the movie are shot that for some reason just feel a bit like a thriller, a bit like an action movie. And again, I keep rating this, it is a horror movie, but for some reason, just the way it's directed, I just didn't personally find it very scary. I don't know if that should be a con. For example, my dad didn't find Hereditary scary at all, and he thought it was stupid. So, you know, it's all subjective. I will say in the end, I did prefer Get Out, but I do still think Us is fantastic, and I will give it 4.5 out of 5 creepy branches. Okay, now we're gonna get into spoilers, so if you have not seen Us yet, if you're walking around doing something else while you're watching this video, come back, hit X, and then come back and finish this once you've seen the movie. So now we're gonna dive right into spoilers and talk about some theories, especially the ending, the twist, everything like that. Now I will say first, and this isn't a nitpick of the movie, it's a nitpick of the trailer, I really wish they would not have shown the scene you see at the end of Adelaide's tethered choking her, because immediately 10-15 minutes into the movie when they show the scene of Adelaide going in there and then coming out, just by virtue of the fact that in the movie they don't show that choking scene in the beginning when she goes down, it made me think, okay, if they're not showing it now, they're probably going to show it at the end, which probably means that they switched. And I have to say, I'm not the type of person who likes to sit and analyze what twists might be. I really like being surprised, and a lot of times I don't figure out the twist by the end. So I'm not trying to be like, I was so clever, I figured it out. I think it's just because in the trailer they show the choking, and when it's not in the beginning of the movie, you know it's gonna be at the end. It kind of made me go right away, okay, she probably choked her and then switched and the other one walked out. However, the twist I was super surprised by was the fact that the trailer really makes it seem as if the Wilson family are the only ones that this is happening to. So when, I don't know the name of the family, the white family that they're friends with, when all of a sudden they're all knocked off and, you know, stabbed, I was completely shocked. I had no idea that that was coming. Even though you do see Elizabeth Moss cutting her face in the trailer, I still didn't put 2 and 2 together, so I was really surprised. Now I want to talk about the whole idea of the tethered living down below and everything in the mythology behind it and kind of suspension of belief. Because one thing I've been seeing people say, and I, again, looking over at my notes, I've been hearing people complain about, you know, how did they get all of the red jumpsuits? How did they get scissors? How did they survive with no sunlight, just eating rabbits, yet some of them kind of looked pretty healthy? What I've basically been hearing is that people think that this is too out there and they're really nitpicking it, and I can kind of understand both sides, because I understand you might think, well, Get Out and everything that was going on with the brains, that could never realistically happen. But I think, you know, with Frankenstein and other types of horror, we can suspend belief enough when we're watching Get Out. Versus Us, this is so different and so much is left to the unknown that I do understand why people feel like they watch the movie and it just feels too open-ended and too much is left unsaid. Now, the pro of that is, you know, Jordan Peele has said that he knows the whole history and mythology behind this, and he did have trouble deciding where do you stop that line for how much history do you tell the audience versus how much do you leave unsaid so that people can go theorize and talk about it on their own, which people are doing. Personally, I'm not the type of person who wants a perfect bow tied on the end of my horror movies. I'm glad a lot was left unsaid. But at the same time, I do wish he had given us a bit more detail, only because when the movie ended, I had a tiny bit, just a tiny bit of an empty feeling, just feeling like I wish I knew a little bit more, just because it felt so unrealistic. But again, that's very subjective. So some theories I've read online, and again, if you've already been reading theories, I'm probably not going to say anything new, but I've heard a lot of people say that US stands for United States, and it's talking a lot about the state of our world and how we view people who were born in a different country than us, who are different than us. I've heard some people say that the tethered represent the lower class, the Wilson family represents the middle class, and that the white wealthy family, of course, represents the upper class. I've heard some people say that the elevator that only goes down to the tethered and not up kind of represents that if you're born into the lower class, is that much harder to move up, which I thought was a really interesting theory. And I think one of the main messages of the movie, and I think it's even said in the movie itself, there's a line where somebody says, you know, we are human, we are the same. And it's easy to watch the movie to surface level and say, oh my God, look at the tethered, they're monsters. They're monsters, they're so different. But by virtue of the fact that the non-tethered original Adelaide, if you want to call her that, who is trapped, who ends up being pulled down there by her tethered, when you look at what she becomes and how her tethered is able to go on and learn to speak and lead this happy life, you know, it does showcase that they are the same, and that often your circumstances and where you're born can shape how you are. Those were all my thoughts on Us. Please let me know if you've seen it, what you think about it. Are there any theories that I've said that you disagree with or that you agree with, or just other ones you've heard before that I didn't mention? If you have not seen the movie, I don't know why you're watching the end of this video right now, because I've just spoiled everything. But if you haven't, I still recommend going to check it out, and I'll see you all next Thursday.